Breaking it down in layman's terms today, I've got a special guest, a good friend of mine who I've done a lot of video collaboration with and learned a lot when it comes to customer experience, service excellence, taking those extraordinary experiences and making them even more extraordinary. I've got keynote speaker, author, consultant, executive coach, Theo Gilbert-Jamison, author of the 6 Principles of Service Excellence. And Theo was a former vice president of training and organizational effectiveness. Theo, did I get it all right?
You did. And you know what? You made me thought about the fact that we have known each other, Doug, almost 20 years. Can you believe it? And we both still look 20.
Yeah, exactly. And, just a little touch up, but high def doesn't play when it comes to video. I got to ask Theo, I mean, we've done some video work and we're going to get into that and share some of our stories with our audience here. But your background with the Ritz-Carlton, you were a vice president of, I believe, training and organizational effectiveness. You made the pivot to go out on your own and do your own training. How did that story come about? Learning those skills to share your expertise to the world.
You know, I'm glad you asked because people ask that all the time. I feel like my PhD in leadership, customer service, customer experience was with the Ritz-Carlton. And I'm so blessed that I had, and fortunate that I had 17 years that I worked with them straight out of college, all the way for 17 years in every discipline and aspect of human resources and learning and development, from a secretary all the way up to, as you said, vice president of learning and development worldwide. I ran the Ritz-Carlton Leadership Center for my last 3 years. And then I decided that I did want to make a pivot. I wanted more work-life balance. And I decided to go out on my own and do consulting because at that time, as today, there were just a lot of organizations interested in learning how they could continue to elevate, the customer experience. So I was blessed that I worked with some of the best leaders across all industries. And it really, in the end, I've just a collection of a lot of good things that I learned from former leaders.
Well, you say industries. You work with a ton of different industries. And I don't want to sell any industry short. Obviously, hospitality, but you also do private and premium luxury clubs. You do education. You do the medical. Each industry has their own ways to train, their own vernacular, whether you call them a patient, a member, a guest. We've done the training videos. The experience at the Ritz-Carlton and the leadership that you learned, did that help transcend you into really coaching and training? What industry don't you do? Was it a big impact on you? Because you cast a wide net. I'll get to the question here. You train in a lot of industries. How so? And how did you get that comfort level?
Well, my last 3 years with the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company was, again, overseeing the Ritz-Carlton Leadership Center, where world-class organizations came in to learn how to be the best in their industry. And so with that, we had some of the top creme de la creme organizations, of course, in healthcare, private clubs, luxury retail, luxury condominiums, just all kinds of luxury automotive, you name it, luxury and mid-tier, they came through. And what they found was that, as a lot of my clients do now, there's so much commonality, Doug, you know it too, from one industry to the next. Sometimes people think that just because you've got just hospitality expertise, that you can't share good learning with someone that's in another industry. But across the board, I always say many of the customers are the same. They want the same things: great service provided by warm and friendly people and a high premium quality product.
And I love that, because when we talk about high premium quality products and services, the Ritz-Carlton is kind of the standard for that. And you've taken those skill sets and talents and share it to multiple industries in different ways, whether it's service training, in healthcare, finance, etc. Now, the way you and I engaged was, we started working together doing video work. And Theo's got a dynamic YouTube channel. And it started off with just one video, people. You got to grow. And she kept with it. And now she's a rock star. A lot of content on video. Let's talk a little bit about that experience with video, because 8 years ago you weren't really doing much with video, and now we're going to put the link up. We're going to show a visual of the videos as well. But Theo, let's talk about our engagement through video for our audience.
Well, I have to give you a lot of accolades, because I knew 8 years ago that I needed to move in that direction, but I was just very hesitant because I was just used to doing live training. And I knew that that there was a transition, I guess, across all industries in learning and development to making sure that things were also available virtually too. And I'll never forget the first year. I think we did one video together. And after that, for 2 years, I avoided you.
She iced me for 2 years.
Yes, because
Oh
I didn't
boy.
want to do anymore. And when we connected again, I mean, we must have done 50 videos, maybe in the span of about maybe 2 years or 3 years
Sure.
together. But everything I learned from you. And you, it's kind of like Doug. Everybody's heard this, give a man a fish, you feed him for the day. But if you teach a man to fish, then you feed him for a lifetime. And I learned everything that I know from you because over time of watching you and getting coaching from you, I was able to transition into writing my own scripts and doing some of my own stuff. And I do that. I still like to have your expertise as much as I can, but sometimes just because of you're not available, I have a lot going on, and I have clients that either want a video on specifics or whatever. And everything that I learned from you has helped me just to catapult in that capacity. So I'm pretty proud of that, but there's still a lot of room to grow, of course.
Well, I love what you said about the journey because we started with one video but not only has she done a lot of videos, she's learned how to edit, produce, and do her own work because she started off with, you know what, you were apprehensive. I don't want to say terrified, but you just didn't want to do it as much, but you saw the value in it. But you kept at it and you learned how to edit. I think you use Filmora, you use different platforms, but you do a lot with your own video production. And that comes to customization and work because your training programs are very customizable. We talked about multiple industries, but if you can walk me through that, if you've got Acme Corporation and they're having a problem with client retention or customer loyalty, you really go into not a scripted way, but you really go into a lot of discovery. You put a lot of work, a ton of work in content and personalization. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I really do. I've always coming out of the Ritz-Carlton culture and also working, most luxury brands, they don't want a replication of what somebody else has done. They want to have their own thing with their own brand standard seal of approval on it. So I usually do with all of my customers or clients some type of gap analysis so that we can figure out what the unique issues are that they need to work on. And they're always different we could be in the same industry, 2 different healthcare organizations, but their gaps may be different. So the customization it gives me a competitive advantage. Every time I go somewhere, some of the training, there may be some nuances that are the same, but in many other instances, I try to pick up on what's their culture. What verbiage do they use? What's important to their leaders, to their customers, to their employees, and pretty much go from there.
I love the gap analysis, but the personalization. When you check out Theo's work, and you talk to her recommendations, you really go in when it comes to personalizing. Because if not, then you're just a commodity trainer.
There you go. And there are a ton of those out there, and a lot of them on YouTube too, as you know.
Right. And it's just, and that's always what I admired working with you when we first started was, obviously you've written the book, you've got workshops, the 6 principles of service excellence, put it right out here. And, but you just put a lot of attention into detail on the content. I mean, that's a lot of work because somebody that does video, I try to pride myself on how to leverage video itself, but always looking at experts, always looking at expertise. And sometimes you can get bogged down into the content creation and not getting things out. I suffer from that from time to time. How do you make it work? How do you set your calendar? I mean, sometimes we're in flux. Can you talk a little bit about time management? I mean, you're just putting out stuff, and I know you're extremely busy. That's a loaded question.
I know. I'm like you. You work 24/7.
Exactly.
But you know something? If you really love what you do, which I do, and I know you do too, you make time for it. Like my job is actually, and I don't want to sound Pollyanna, like a Pollyanna, but my job is also a hobby. So it's something that I really enjoy. That guess what? If I won the lottery, which I do play the lottery, trying to win it. But if I did, I would probably still do this in some form because it's just something that I love. And the thing that I love is we mentioned do a lot of customization too, is that you find out that through the customization, you've always got fresh content. You do that a lot too, Doug. I noticed that when I'm searching, when I'm looking on your YouTube channel and looking through some of the social media venues that you're in, I see a lot of different, you're always on the cutting edge of something new that's going to help people as far as sales or as far as promoting their business. So I'm just following you, my friend.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, but I think we can level set it at this: personalization and customization. Let's keep it 100 with your content. Had to put it in there, but you gotta change, you gotta evolve, you gotta create, or if not, then competition's. Let's face it, it's tough out there. And speaking of being tough out there, we've been hit over the last couple of years. We're smack dab, in this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
We hear the word pivot. You made the pivot from the Ritz-Carlton to go out on your own to do this great executive coaching and training. I know the obvious question: what's changed since the pandemic? Obviously, more virtual training, more Zooms, but I want to hear it from the source here. What was the biggest change, and what have you learned from this experience?
Well, it's interesting that there were still a lot of clients that were a little hesitant about virtual learning, utilization of videos, because they always felt that in-person experience, nothing can beat that as far as employee engagement and participant engagement is concerned. And that still is true. But more people were open to Zoom. They're open to videos. And just, online learning and all of those other platforms that help to diversify the learning. Some people learn better from hearing, some people seeing, some people doing. I'm kind of like a person that I need a little bit of all of those. But what the pandemic has done is open leaders, especially senior leaders and so on, executives, decision makers, to being a little more open to looking at all the different virtual options there are to make sure that the learning is sustainable. And also, you end up with the fact that someone can look at it again. If I go in and do a workshop, people absolutely love it. They have a great time. But the retention on live workshops, as statistics show and studies show, is really about 60 days. And then after that, the learning and the enthusiasm begins to wane. But if you've got the virtual, the recordings, the online learning and things of that nature, people can go back and, look at it to reinforce the learning at a later time.
Reinforcement training through virtual training through video. And I think that's something that we all were acclimated during the pandemic and where we are now. But you've been doing video content prior to the pandemic, and you've obviously made the pivot and gone in. But
Yeah.
getting back to face-to-face, let's just talk about the face-to-face environment. I'm just going to get on it right now. Customer experience, service recovery. You talk a lot about how to fix problems.
Yes.
But do I feel right now, and again, I know you primarily work with luxury and premium brands and your specialty when it's hospitality and everything else. I'm just going to bring it down to the level of retail. I'm going into the store. I'm going to check. Since we've been in the pandemic, now we're out and about. Is it me, or am I seeing a lack of human skills, social skills, and everything else when it comes to the customer experience?
You're seeing a lack of teamwork, a lack of accountability, a lack of communication between employees. There's just lack on so many varying levels, and a lack of staffing. There's limited staffing everywhere. So that kind of falls in there too. But not long ago, I was asked to speak at a conference, and my topic was customer service post-COVID. And I was like, it should be excellent and exceptional as it should have been pre-COVID.
Right.
But we
right.
still end up with mediocrity, so there's still a lot of room. Unfortunately, people don't like to hear it, but it just opens the door for, artificial intelligence. We've talked about this before. If you have a problem, you cannot find a human being. Yesterday, I had a software problem, so I had to dig on the software provider's website to try and find a telephone number, but they want you to chat and type. I don't want to chat and type. I just want to talk to somebody, fix the problem, and move on. And there's just so much more of that. We'll become more and more conditioned. And because service is so bad, hate to say it, what it does is it creates a conditioning that, if a human being does not serve me, that's okay. As long as it's expedient, the service is expedient, and as long as it's accurate. And there was a time when people only wanted to deal with human beings and wanted the human interaction. But we're in a time now where, and I think that as we look at whatever, I know we're not in the millennials whatever generation we're in now, Gen Z, whatever, they will be more accustomed to artificial intelligence and all this stuff where, you don't have to deal with being. More and more people really don't, we've gotten to a point people don't want to deal with a human being. They just want to get on the computer or their phone, order what they want, have it sent, and call it a day. Unfortunately, that's where we're headed. That's where we are, not headed.
Do you want the job done right, or you want the job done fast? Okay, efficiency, I get it, but there's a trade-off.
Hold on one second with that. I did a training not too long ago, and someone said in healthcare, and they said, we were talking about how important, kindness and empathy, compassion, patience, and all of this is in the customer experience. And they said, do you want me to be nice, or do you want me to get the job done right? I was like, I want both.
No, I didn't get it. You know something though, and this is something that's a credit to you, and I kind of really try to express this with what you do and the amount of work you're doing. If you know it's a bad experience, then you can come in and you can say, okay, this was bad, the hero moment, it's better. But what about companies and organizations that think, NPS score, they think everything is great, and they don't realize they're average at best? Because you use that phrase, taking those experiences from average to extraordinary. So you get that mid-tier company or organization or club or whatever the case is, that you train in every industry, and they think they're operating on all cylinders, and really there's an opportunity that they could even be better. I mean, that's something you got to draw on. You know what? Your service isn't where you think it is. And that's sometimes of a hard conversation, but that's where your expertise comes into play.
And, that's why leaders, and that's the leader's fault. It's the fault of leadership often, because they have not defined for employees what an exceptional experience should look, sound, and feel like. So people provide mediocre experiences where they barely smile, they barely acknowledge you, they barely give you whatever you ordered. They ring it up accurately, and then they think that they've provided excellence. People are just so confused. And that's why I always say that it goes back to, the role of a leader in driving excellence is to make sure that you clearly define what excellence should look, sound, and feel like. And Doug, it's interesting how often I ask leaders that are having difficulty with raising the bar with the level of service that their employees provide. And when I ask them, what should excellence within your department or team look, sound, or feel like, I get like a deer with the headlights. They don't know. They haven't thought about that. But the leader has to set the vision for what excellence is. So it's great that you mentioned that. A lot of this is just, it's common sense, but we're so focused on all the functional aspects of making sure that the job gets done that at the end of the day, we forget about the purpose. The purpose is to provide a memorable experience for that customer. And so many people think if it's accurate, that's excellence. Well, yeah, people want it. I do want it accurate, but I would like it accurate, provided by someone that's kind and friendly, and sensitive to my needs and make me as a customer feel valued. Am I over the board? I may
no.
At this point, I don't know.
No, you're 100% and more, because you want to take it above the average level. And you use the word vision. And when I think of vision, I think of video. And I think people need to go over to your YouTube channel, because you've got videos on leadership, accountability. And what really intrigued me was about service recovery. Okay, you've had a bad evaluation, bad service. How do you fix it, and how do you build on that? But I think, and I know so, is that if you have a great experience, you'll be a repeat customer, you'll be a loyal customer, and you might even be an advocate. I preach this to sales. I think your best sales force, your best sales team out there is your current customers that market and sell on your behalf. The A word, advocacy. So same thing with leadership and development. Same thing with training. Keeping your customers satisfied, but beyond that, the little extra things that you do. Now you've learned that through life in general, but you learned that at the Ritz, but you transcended that. And I think that's where we're headed right now. But people are back in the public now, and I go back to the grocery store, and I have the option of checking out or self-checkout, and there's not enough cashiers there. And when I check out, I can do it, but maybe I don't feel like doing it. Maybe I don't want to count the bananas. Maybe I should get a discount if I'm doing all the labor here, punching in the stuff, just take my stuff out there, just roll with it and stop me. But I don't know. I think, the human element needs to be there. You would agree, and needs to be at a level. You talked about earlier about, getting somebody on the phone or getting some tech support. We've got the bots, and I see there's different forms of efficiency.
Yeah.
I do book reviews on Amazon. The 6 Principles of Service Excellence. You need to put that video out there. There's guidelines in Amazon on how you can do reviews, because you can't make them too salesy. You can't make them too commercial. You can't be paid, yada, yada, yada. But I had an issue with that. I couldn't get somebody on Amazon to do an Amazon review on there. And I'm talking about, that's the ultimate social video experience. I'm like, Amazon, can I talk to somebody about your review? I could talk about if my package wasn't shipped correctly or if I lost something, but a simple thing internalized. So I don't know, how-to videos, helping people with videos. From your own video experience, what have you learned? And I'm getting to the question here finally, after I did a little, diatribe there. What have you learned from your video experience over the last, I guess, couple years? Where are you growing with that?
It changes just like everything else. Right now, for quite a while, people have liked the bite size, right? So you got to keep things in like 3-minute segments, 5-minute segment, or a 15-minute segment. But I can't tell you how many things that I will watch on now, even on YouTube, that's an hour and a half, as long as it's interesting, engaging in the information that the people want or that they need to improve, they'll be engaged. But I just sometimes am very aware of, because a lot of what I talk about is things that help people professionally and work, not a nice funny cat video, that it really has to, there's certain time targets that you want to hit. Make sure that the point is made within 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and so on, so that you keep the person engaged.
Well, I like what you said there, and you just put a real life example of that, because people ask that question. Well, how long should my video be? Well, you talked about short videos. You talked about longer form videos, longer than 3 minutes, etc. And the answer is, as long as your client, customer, whoever your audience is engaged.
Yes.
If they want to go down for a 10-minute, an hour, minute video, if they're engaged, and as long as they can comprehend it. If I see a video and I can't understand what they're saying, I don't care if it's 20 seconds long or an hour long, it goes over my head, my pay grade, whatever, boom, I may tune out. So you've got to be engaged. But I put this out to people out there when they ask, how long should a video be? As long as your audience can comprehend the content and they're inspired and engaged. And that's a question within a question. And, speaking of questions, I'm going to bring out virtual Vonda right now. Actually, she's going to have a little ad spot here, and then she's going to come back later in the show and she'll ask you, Theo, a question. But we're going to bring out Vonda for a quick advertisement, and we'll be right back.
Thanks, Doug. We are living in a virtual business world. Virtual selling and video marketing are on the rise. Communicating socially online is fine, but there might be an opportunity to collaborate further. By building on your social proof visually. In layman's terms, creating visual story selling content. Thanks again for connecting and social watching.
Thanks, Vonda. And yeah, as Vonda was saying there, social proof, connecting and collaborating. From your video journey, you're a speaker, you're a trainer, you do a lot of face-to-face presentations. Probably not as much right now, but you knew 10 years ago that video was the play.
Well, we used to talk many years ago about a concept that we call blended learning. And that's really what we're still doing, where you have live presentations, you have webinars, you have Zoom, you have your video. So it's still the same thing, is just making sure that you've got a diversified product, so that based on the person's learning style, again, it goes back to, some people have to sit in a seat in a classroom to learn. That's probably me. I'm not the biggest online learner. I'll do it if I have to. Others would prefer to learn online. And then some people can, do a mixture of both, or they like the Zoom experience or whatever. But when you think about just the fact of learning and video and all of these great attributes that are out there, keep it simple, right? Has to remain
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we can get really, we can use the large words and get very a student. I'd like to say we can become a college professor. All of that's really great. But at the end of the day, what keeps people engaged is if you can give them 3 simple steps, 2 tips, 2 best practices, 10 things to do to be better, and just keep it simple.
Keep it simple. And that's how I like your style and the flow. And you've got playlist on your YouTube channel, a lot of great content, but you're constantly putting out content as well. I got Vonda in my ear again. She wants to come back, and I think she wants to ask you a question, but we're going to bring Vonda out here because she is part of the show.
Thanks, Doug. Bondavi is here. Are there any special projects that you're working on? Give us some breaking news or updates that you can share with us. And now, back to you, Doug. Bondavi is out. Thank you.
Thanks, Vonda.
Vonda's the best. I tell you, things that I'm working on, executive coaching, and I'm learning so much from the people that I'm coaching. And that's also how I end up with so much great content because of the questions that people ask. How do I better engage my leadership team? How do I get more productivity? How do I hold people accountable? How do I make sure that I've got some work-life balance? How do I enrich myself? The questions go on and on. So, that gives me video content all the time because I get such great questions. We have such great conversation around how leaders can be better. And it always ends with some great tips that someone else can certainly use and learn from. So that's been my big thing is, what did I just say? My big thing has been the executive coaching. And from that, online learning, videos, and so on.
And that's awesome. And I know that you've done a lot recently with diversity and inclusion training and culture of service excellence. I mean, you've got a whole series on that as well. And I know that's been content that you've been putting out, but I think over the last year, you really went hard on diversity training. Is that correct?
That is. But Doug, I'm a firm believer that diversity training cannot be a once a year checklist. And for many companies, that's actually what it is. It's January, time to do diversity training again. The year is almost over. We got to make sure we get in that diversity training. Diversity and inclusion and equity should be regular, ongoing conversations. And then you don't need a training class if you're always talking about unconscious biases. What makes us different? How can we value the differences? How can we how can we appreciate what other people bring to the table? If you're talking about that on a regular basis, then there's no need to try and beat it in anybody's head in one hour session. But I love doing diversity training, so I'm not saying anything negative about it. But the thing is that after the training, it needs to become an ongoing conversation, and that's how you keep front of mind to your leadership team and to your staff, not to do things that will make other people feel uncomfortable, unwelcome, that will make them feel that that they're not a part of the team. Because a lot of times with diversity and so on issues, it's the little things. And if we talk about it on a regular basis, then we kind of make it easier to create just an environment where people really value each other.
I love there was so much to unpack there because first thing you says it's not like diversity training January, check.
Yes.
Still issues, check. Okay, we got to do this because we have to do this.
Yes.
But the maintaining the culture of service excellence. Once you train on whether it's diversity training or service recovery, take away what you learn, but then build on that culture. There's accountability. Mm-hmm. But just not having a check off list, because if you go back to the same story, you keep going back and back, then it's not really doing its service that it needs to be.
And you know what? Diversity training, you have 3 types of people that come into the workshop. You have the ones that they're just there because their manager made them come. They really don't want to be there. Then you got the ones in the middle that it's kind of like a bell curve, right? You got the ones that don't want to be there, the ones in the middle that are like, well, I have to be here. I'll make the best of it. This is a good thing. But then you have on the end, the people that this is who I am every single day. They're happy to be in the class. They're happy that the organization is having the class. They want the organization to continue the dialogue because this is how they are every day. And, that's what you want to create is, again, employees that people know. They know, it's time for diversity class again.
Right.
I make the class fun, it's not just, I hate to make this whole thing about diversity, but we're so diverse in diversity. It's more than race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, and a few other things. We're diverse in so many different ways. And that's really what diversity should be about, is valuing all the different ways that we are diverse and how that makes us a better team.
No, I love what you said there, and just being, diverse, and your training is so diverse, your industry is specific. I'm gonna open it up to you. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Anything that we didn't cover? Anything you want to ask me? The ball's in your court. Let it rip.
I'm always interested too in what you're doing and how do you arrive on. You do a lot of great videos. How you arrive on, like what's going to be your next video project? How do you decide? Because you put out a lot of content on a regular basis too, and videos are really tremendous. People should be doing them. Let me start with this. How did you reach the ease with which you produce videos now? What's your journey? Where do you start?
It's an ongoing journey, but on the content, I try to think about what I'm seeing out there in the industry. And you talked about long form video, short form video, but the ease, it's not easy. You just got to get your reps in. I mean, for me, doing live video calls is something new to me. I've done a lot of interviews, so that you get better with progressions, you get better with time. So one of the things I like to do is mix it up a little bit. Maybe I'll do some book reviews. I'll go really into sales, but I'm really honing in right now on communication skills, the art of the interview, how to ask questions, when to listen, when to fall back. And we're in this virtual world, how to make that all work in a 1 to 2 minute interview. So a lot going on, but not a lot going on, but unpacking it. But no, easy. I'm not trying to shun it. It's not, you make it look easy. It just takes time.
Yes.
And, I'm screwing up every day. I've screwed up on this interview maybe a couple of times. So the key, I can edit some of it out, not all of it. I'm not a miracle worker. And that'd be on my end. You were fabulous. So, but no, it's just, go ahead.
One thing I'd like to add is that you've been a wonderful mentor for me along the way, in helping me to get where I am today. Am I where I want to eventually be? I've still got some inroads to make, but that you've just been a great coach, a great mentor, a great role model. And sometimes people don't realize the impact that they've had on other people. So as they say, I have to give you your flowers.
All right. Well, I'll take my flowers. No, I'll take it. I'll take it. The kind words, because, I'm going to bring up something and we're going to take another way. But, you and I had met, but we met through a mutual connection who I did a lot of video work with. Yes. She's in heaven right now, Gilbert-Jamison. And Barb was the one that kind of made the introduction of us too. Says, you need to meet this customer service excellence trainer with loyalty premium brands. You guys had worked well together. And I did a lot of interviews with Barb, and Barb was very conversational in our interviews, to the point and conversational. And I learned a lot from her as a mentor, as well as you. And that's why when I do these interviews in layman's terms, just behind the scenes, people, I want to have the conversational style of a podcast. I just don't want it to be ask a question, you answer a question, who, what, where. Now, if I'm doing a marketing interview, that's one thing. So it's testament to a mentor like you, Theo, and somebody like Barb, who's made the introduction. So I think we learn a lot from each other.
Barb is definitely looking down from heaven. Giamanco, what a wonderful woman, and what a significant impact that she made on us and so many others. So we have to give her moment of silence with us, because she's just good to think about her again. But Doug, you have been instrumental in helping me with catapulting my business, because getting back to videos, think about a time when all of my work is word of mouth. It's always that someone had me come in and do a workshop or a keynote presentation or a panel speaker for their conference or whatever, and they'll recommend me. And so somebody wants to know, well, who is she? Now they can go on YouTube. They can look at the videos and they can determine, is this someone that we want to come in and speak to our leadership team, to our team of employees? Is this someone that's credible enough to speak to our senior executive team? So video really helps with all of that. It takes away the nuance of people being kind of hesitant because they don't know what type of speaker you are. So, you know, I have to attribute you dragged me in. So I'm eternally grateful, you know, for that. And also one more thing, hate to hog up the question.
No, it's all good.
But I'll tell you that, you know, formats like this, where I love these type of formats where I do a lot of podcasts where they ask the question and then you elaborate for minutes on end.
Right. Unpack it.
People love the back and forth banter. People love to hear from people. Love this. So, you know, I'm looking forward to more of this with you, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely want to take you up on that. And I want just to what you said earlier was about the credibility of having video out there, the visual social proof, the credibility. If I'm presenting face to face, you need to see video out there. And I don't want to make this about video, but the collaboration, I'm looking forward to doing more projects with you this year, getting back, doing some video work. But again, the collaboration style, by having collaborative styles of interviews, I think that's what I'm really researching now.
Yes.
Because do you want to be average or do you want to be extraordinary? How do you raise the bar, Theo? How do you raise the bar when it comes to video? How do you raise the bar when it comes to service excellence training? And that's where we're headed. And you learn from people like yourself. So on that note, if there's anything else, I want to close this out, and I look forward to engaging with you in the future on some other video collaborations.
This has been my pleasure. You know, that's something that we say in the Ritz-Carlton world, but it's been a pleasure working with you. Definitely being on this interview today, and I'm just looking forward to great things that we're going to maybe partner on doing in the future.
Absolutely. And you can tell the energy is there. Hey, Theo, it's been my pleasure. And I encourage everybody out there to check out Theo Gilbert-Jamison's content, her YouTube channel, her websites. We'll have all the links and all that information. In layman's terms, keeping it social, leveraging video, have that ultimate customer experience, raise the bar high, and learn from people like Theo Gilbert-Jamison. I'm Doug, breaking it down for the last time in layman's terms. Theo, I look forward to collaborating with you in the future.